Okay, welcome everyone. Today's topic is the data empowered organization and how to build a modern data estate. And to help me untangle this really important topic is Heine Krog Iversen, who is the CEO of TimeXtender. Welcome, Heine.
Thank you, Bernard. Happy to be here, and I think it's going to be a great topic to discuss.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. Where are you joining us from today?
Today, I'm joining from Denmark, so
Very
home
good.
office in Denmark.
Very
Um,
good.
so close to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually grew up in Hamburg, and my brother lives in
Oh,
Flensburg, so just on the Danish border. And they're about to move into Denmark. Um, where are you normally based? Are you based in the US or in
and
Denmark?
normally we live in Bellevue, so outside Seattle. But basically, we try to have two homes and fly back and forth.
Very good. So tell me a little bit more about your background and about Time Extender.
Well, my background is I've been in tech for 20 years, and starting, in the classic, this is way before cloud. We have to remember that, right? So when we were implementing ERP systems and everything had to be into the data server room, uh, and then 16 years ago, we started to see that there must be a smarter way to implement data warehouses. So that's where we started data warehouses, OLAP cubes, very boring, very classic, but that's what we had back in the days. Uh,
Mm.
and started to think about how can we do this 10 times faster, and how can we reuse. I think that was the first real driver we had, was when implementing ERP as a consultancy. 80% of what you do to implement analytics on every single customer is the same. So why did we actually have to start from scratch every time? That was kind of the first driver of starting Time Extender back in the days.
Very good. And tell me a bit more about Time Extender.
So Time Extender is focused on building the data estate, and we define the data estate as the whole, you could say, back office of data that you need to do analytics or AI, machine learning, whatever use case you have. So we need to have a data lake. You could also argue the raw data. We need to have a data warehouse, and we need to have semantic models or data products or whatever term people like to use for that layer, but more business unit specific definitions, including calculations and whatever is needed. Uh, and we believe that we need to see this data estate as one big combined solution. We cannot see it as, okay, a team is building a data lake, and of course that's adding value, especially to the data scientist. Then somebody else will build a data warehouse. Hopefully they will use the data lake to do it. And somebody else will do semantic and front end, Click, Power BI, Tableau, whatever source. But reality is that it's an end-to-end thing. So we see it as building everything on metadata, making sure that data lineage, documentation, governance, security, everything is done across all the different elements in your data estate. So kind of the blueprint, right? And then separate it. This is the key. Separate it from the underlying technology. So the blueprint shows the business flow of data, the value of data, and whatever we do, and then we deploy it. That's the automation part of what we do. We don't write the code. Our customers don't write the code. We write the code, or the software writes the code, right? So that you can move it around. We have customers, that started out of Azure Data Lake Gen 1. And then Microsoft said, oh, sorry, we learned something. We would like to move into a Gen 2. We're retiring Gen 1. That gives normal customers a headache. We have a giant construction customer in the Netherlands, and they moved. The technical movement was done in 15 minutes because they just pointed to Gen 2, and then we redesigned the entire underlying code. And that's where we actually believe the world needs to go. We need to stop writing code. We need to be able to act faster by simply saying this data needs to go here, and this is the data quality rules, and then basically now we can use it.
Very good. We'll dive a bit more into this later on, hopefully, in the conversation. I want to start with asking you about an article you have recently published on your website, which has a very provocative and bold headline saying data management is dead.
Yes.
Why did you write this, and what do you mean by it?
Well, I think we wrote it, and yes, you could say that the headline is a little provocative, but I think to cutting through the noise, and you need sometimes to say the obvious, right? Because data management, actually, what is it? I think the whole industry has now 500 different definitions of what data management is. That's my first conclusion. Okay, then it's dead, because if we don't have a single definition, then it's dead. But the issue we have is that we are having the wrong focus. Most customers that I meet and talk to, and I'm going to talk to data teams, and that is provocative to tell them, but they are focused and tasked and asked to build a data lake or build a data warehouse. So they see that as their end goal. That is my task. I'm done when I have this perfect data warehouse built. But that's not why they do it. That's not why the business asked for it. So we need to take it one more step, so that we cannot talk about that it's about data management. It's about data empowering. It's about making sure that this work that still needs to happen. Yes, we still need to figure out what data do we have. We still need to design a data model. So that is not going away. We just need to change the mindset that why we are doing it. We're not doing it to manage data. We're doing it to empower the business to do something based on the data. So that's kind of the thinking that I'm having in this topic right now.
Now, I really like this, and I really like the phrase data empowered organization rather than data driven organization. So, from your point of view, what makes a data empowered organization?
Well, first of all, it's a mindset. And just like you could argue that data driven is a mindset, that the issue with data driven, and the reason that we try to refrain from talking about being data driven, is I don't believe it exists. Uh, I do believe that you can predict things based on historical data, and but you can only predict based on what was the content and the context that this data was generated in. So I was just speaking to a bunch of investors and money makers last week, and I said, okay, guys, so you can try to predict how your return will be on your investment fund. But how do you factor in that you now got a new best friend with a lot of free cash, so that now you got two new funds? The model won't have a chance to know and understand that you actually now have two more funds. Uh, and we can have all the examples we want. I just read this morning that Apple are now moving the production of iPhone 14 to India. I guarantee there's no data-driven decision-making system that could have guessed and suggested, because it's a political decision, right? It's a geopolitical decision that they're doing it. And that's why we need to flip it around and talk about being data empowered, so that every person, every business unit, everybody who needs to make decision needs to have access to as much data as possible, relevant data, to be part of the decision. We talk about in TimeXtender that data, mind, and heart is exactly the same. You add what you believe, you add strategic decisions, and then you can be data empowered.
Very good. I always like to look at practical examples. So, do you have any examples of organizations that you feel are have created this data empowered environment and are using data in the way that you would like to see it?
I think that the majority of, to be honest, majority of customers who are, regardless, what technology platform that they are on, but customers in general that have, pushed analytics into different business units, they are basically on the right path to become data empowered, right? Because that, and if they see this mindset that it's about, not trying to protect data, because then you will never be data empowered. If you have this mindset that, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of bigger American companies are still operating that way, that you need, it's a need to know basis. You can only see the accounts you have in your CRM system. You cannot see the rest. You cannot see another division's numbers, right? That mindset is preventing. So any company that are taking that, hey, let's push analytics in whatever form into the business unit to help them make decisions, to help them find patterns in historical data, they are actually on the journey to become data empowered. So that's the two things for me to look for.
Very good. And in your article, you said data management is dead. What do you see are then the biggest challenges for data teams today and in the future? How do they enable organizations to become data empowered?
I think I think there's multiple dark clouds in front of us if we are in data teams, and the cloud is one of them. I think that one of the biggest challenges that data teams have is the speed of which the services and the technologies are evolving these days on the different cloud platforms. So it's I would not say impossible, but almost impossible to catch up and know, like just on Azure, right? How are all the small details, also from performance optimization, etc. How is all these services, data factory services, and they're constantly changing, right? So to keep up with enough skills, experience, knowledge and giving that you actually have to deliver some output. So you cannot just be on the school bench every half the year, right? I think I actually see that is one of the biggest challenges. The other big challenge I see is that the amount of data sources, the amount of systems that are being used, and the business will ask to have data from consolidated together with other data, is rapidly growing, as well as now we see all these cloud applications, and you don't have to ask IT, so you might not even know that marketing has these 10 applications until that they ask, hey, can you take all the data from what? I have never seen these systems. So that uncertainty, you never know, what data you need to address. I see as a big challenge for data teams. And then I think we have to be fair that there is also a shortage of people, data engineers, data scientists. The demand is way higher right now, and will probably continue to be as everything becomes data than the supply. So that's also going to be a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the speed of innovation is accelerating, and I think it will accelerate further as we move into the future. And I agree with you, the skills challenge is massive for most organizations. So what do they do? How do organizations tackle this?
But I think that there's, of course, always multiple ways to tackle it. And TimeXtender, our platform, our technology, but also our belief is that the future is towards no code, low code, is towards automation, because it's not going to continue to be feasible just to do it the manual way and write all the SQL code and move it around. Yeah, I know we got DevOps systems and CI/CDs and all that, but I think that is more trying to solve, the pain instead of trying to solve the problem. Then the data teams start to work like software teams. Okay, cool, but that is still complicated, right? And I think the real tipping point here is that the business cannot wait. The business will not wait. right? So you have to deliver fast. In software, yes, we can set a cadency and we can deliver new versions with a X months between, and we can plan. But I don't think data team can expect that the business will accept that anymore, right? The business users are used to iPhones and apps going fast,
Absolutely. It's
right?
going super fast. I completely agree. And I believe you feel that data teams are delivering insights to organizations too late. Is that right?
I think we hear that all the time. Or maybe not too late, but if either they do it too late or they are stressed out doing it, right? And it's the backlog is ever growing. Uh, and as I see it, the solution that people need to say, and this again goes with anything in life, if you want a different result, you most likely have to do something different, right? So the data teams needs to stop at some point. I was talking to, it was very interesting. I was talking to a large customer of ours in Belgium a couple of weeks ago, and they struggle with some. The team has grown too big because again, if you want to automate and low code, don't bring 25 people into this doing the same work. It's not a good idea. But they were falling into that trap. Okay, the business keeps asking for more and more, and what can we do? We just throw more people at it. I said, okay, but you're still working in what I call the old school way, that you get a request from the business. You look at what data you need for that to deliver that request, and then you work your way backwards, basically all the way back to the data sources, in case you didn't have all the data already modeled into your data warehouse.
Mm.
I think it's like 5 years ago that I worked out a different data warehouse design, modern data warehouse we call it, together with Barry Devlin, uh, that takes a different approach. That guys, put everything you have into your data warehouse, because you never know what they will need next time, right? And I had this dialogue with this customer. I said, guys, have you thought about, not a big bang, but either source by source or area by area. So the next time you have to do something about customers, why don't you just bring all the information you can find about customers into your customer table on your warehouse? Because then it will be much faster to deliver the next data product or the next semantic layer. And they said, that's a brilliant idea. We don't have time for that. Okay, so we don't have time. So like you see that picture with the guy with the square wheels and the guy with the round wheels, they try these instead. No, I'm too busy, right? This is actually what I see out on the customer side, because they're so busy and they're really trying hard to deliver to the business, right? And then of course the second question was, okay, but who should pay? I said, what do you mean who should pay? Yes, but every request and everything we're doing is built that department or business unit asking for it. And if we build something up front, who can we build? But again, I know sometimes I am a little provocative. I told him, is this gravity or is this a rule, internal financial rule the CFO has made up? It was internal. Okay, then go tell the CFO to change the rule.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This analytics bottleneck is something I see almost in every single organization I work with, and what we're seeing is that the demand for analytic services going up, is going up, is going up. And exactly as you say, sometimes organizations put charging models in place to say, okay, if you want our time, you need to pay for it. But this is completely counterproductive, because what you want is you want an organization that enables everyone to get their own insights. So we talk about the democratization of data, we talk about augmented analytics, where we can use AI to, instead of having this constant pull concept where you're pulling insights from information, to a much more push concept where information is analyzed by AIs to identify patterns, and information is pushed to decision makers, and they use new technology like natural language processing to have a conversation with their data and are able to access it. The challenge I'm seeing is, one is the charging model, the other one is just having the time and freedom to do it. But I also feel that lots of organizations are putting this concept in place. They're building a nice, pretty data lake. They put all of the information, or try to put all of it in there. Then they put a little pretty analytics tool on top of it.
Yeah.
And then they say, voila, we now have no code, self service, data democratization. Everyone can find their own answers. And somehow it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
I find the reason it doesn't work is that people need a bit more hand holding. And I think we need to bring people in to bridge some of those gaps and teach business users how to do their own fishing and how to find the information. Do you see that too?
Absolutely. I think that when you have that example of a data lake with some fancy tool on top, uh, I think that's when companies, some managers somewhere just have checkbox. Okay, we need this. It's checked off. Yes, we also have that, right? Without really thinking about what, again, going back to being data empowered, what does that actually mean? And trust me, it's different company by company, and it's probably different business unit by business unit. Some business units, some companies will have much more skilled resources within the business to do directly on the lake, and some will have less skilled. And we cannot expect everybody, and we shouldn't expect. And this is one of my, I talked about this for 15 years now, that self-service BI is really not a good idea, because the majority of our colleagues, of the employees in a business, are not hired to be data analysts and try to figure out what the data tells them. They are hired to do the job that is in their job description. So that could be talk to clients or whatever job they have, right? So, but they need to be data empowered. That's also why we still see it as an integrated thing. You need your data warehouse. You cannot just have a data lake, because that turns into a data swamp if you don't use it correctly. You need your data warehouse, but I think you also need your data product or your semantic models that are tailored, and you need people with skills to understand the business and bridge that. If that means that you need to have a cross-functional team of a more technical resource and the business savage, yes, maybe. There's a lot of discussions going on right now with this data mesh and data fabric discussion out there. We talk about, should we centralize or decentralize? I think we need to do both. I think the solution here is doing both. We centralize the data warehouse and the data lake, and we decentralize the work, not the storage, but where the systems are, but the organization. Then we ask, okay, now we have all our data both in curated, quality controlled form and in raw form. Now we ask some other people from the business, maybe with a little help, to build these data products that fits the different use cases. And that's why we can not use a Kimball star schema to model our data warehouse, because that's why people end up with several data warehouses over 15 years time, because something changed, right? We just engaged with a private equity firm. That doesn't change my data, but the fact that they want to change my fiscal year to follow calendar year, that changed a lot of my calculations and a lot of my numbers and a lot of my reports. But I want to be able to run both at the same time. Because we don't have this structure model into the data warehouse, we just build a new data product. Say it's exactly the same data. Now the time dimension has just changed. And now we can have everything in parallel, right? And that's how we can empower. That's how the data team can, become shopkeepers, can help empower the business users. It's finding that fine line. Where do they stop their work and then give it over to somebody else?
Very good. And you talk about the fact that a data empowered organization needs a modern data infrastructure, a modern data estate. How would you define a modern data estate? What does it look like?
Well, to me, it looks like I need data in three forms, and that's why we see that the whole data estate. I need all my raw data, and you could argue that, well, we can just leave them in the source system. Reality is we can't, because with cloud applications, if we change our source system to another, from one, let's go from Dynamics to Salesforce, the moment I stop paying Microsoft for the Dynamics license, my data is gone. So we need to, as a company, we need to start thinking about that, take ownership of all our historical data in the raw form. And the best and the easiest and fastest way to do that is to dump it all into a data lake. Very few employees will be able to get any meaning out of a data lake. The data scientists can use it with the tools that they have, but the business users, it's files, it's Parquet files, it's complicated, right? So we believe that you need to have this modern data warehouse. And the definition of a modern data warehouse is that you normalize and widen out your design. So you haven't made any decisions on, what is a dimension, what is a fact, and how are we going to use this. So if I have 5 systems, just to simplify example, with customers in customer information, I will pull it all into one table, customers, in my data warehouse, so that I have it all there. And you have, you will have tables with more fields but fewer tables, and fewer relationships built into your data warehouse, simply based on the concept that it reflects our definition of what is a customer, what is a vendor, what is an employee, what is a machine, what is a product, but not what system that is actually lives in, and not what we are going to use this information. That sometimes we're looking at sales, sometimes it's supply chain. So it's the same product or machine information, supply information, warehouse information, but it's different dimensions. It will be selected differently. And then on the semantic layer, or the data product layer, that is where you basically build, to simplify it a little, your star schema. That is where you say, okay, I have all my invoice lines, all my sales lines, and then I have my customers and my products, and this is the level of hierarchies and dimensions that I want. This is to support these types of analysis within this business unit. Then you can have, basically an unlimited amount of these semantic models, and then my vision is that the integration of your semantic model or your data product into the most used front ends should also be automated. So that's what we do. If you build your semantic model, you can select, oh, I want it as Click, as Power BI, as Tableau, as ThoughtSpot, whatever. But you don't have to start again on the front end side. We can give you the data model and the integration needed for the front end to update with fresh data. And then you can continue and design your visualizations and how you actually want your report to look, right?
Very good. So the 3 layers you talk about is the data lake with the raw data, the data warehouse with the schemas that allows you to structure the data, and then you have the front end, which is your BI and dashboard tools, right?
No, not completely, because we don't have the front end. We have semantic models in between. So we don't think about how to visualize the model. We only build the model, and we see that is I see that as a key element, because yes, you could say, and many customers will actually take the let's say Power BI for the sake of it, and connect it to the data warehouse, and then with Power BI functionality, yes, they can easily build up a report and a data model that will feed that report based on that. The reason I don't like that approach is that you limit yourself to having that model within Power BI. And reality is that, first of all, Power BI also changes over time, right? So we have to remember that. But why don't we give, the customer and the user much more freedom? Yes, but I want to use Tableau, or I want to use Click. Reality, when you go into a decent size of company today, they have them all. Mm-hmm. All the front ends exist there, right? And I think the to be fully data empowered, the data team build data models but give much more freedom to the business side, to what tool then to use. I mean, finance will use Excel any day because that's the only thing they know how to work, right?
Yeah, very good. I completely agree. I see this in, again, almost all of my clients, that one department is using Power BI, the other one is using Click, the other one is using ThoughtSpot, and yeah, it makes sense to have a semantic model underpinning those so you can share this across the organization. So what is stopping organizations building a modern data estate as you see it?
I think there's several blockers. One is that you have to stop at some point and start over, right? I, we have several discussions. I have often discussions with potential new customers saying, yes, but how we already have half a data lake here and a quarter of a data warehouse over here, and how do we get that, to work together with the new stuff? And I said, you don't, because you have, there's a reason why we're having a discussion, right? There's a reason that you only have half a data lake, because it actually is very complicated when you also have to document and maintain and do incremental updating on a data lake, and you end up giving up, right? The good thing is everything is point and click and drag and drop, so it's relatively easy to replicate the parts that you want to reuse. So being in a position where it's simply too difficult mentally for them to stop and look and say, okay, we need to do something, like the customer case I referenced, right? Okay, but it's not that easy to change this, right? And it takes time. Then there's the whole funding discussion, and this whole blame game where businesses, as you know, blaming technology and IT teams, but how hard can it be? And then I also have to be a little honest and say there's also a lot of ego standing in the way, from not everybody, but from some of the data engineers, some of the technical people, because if their mindset is that my product, my output is to deliver a data warehouse, and that data warehouse needs to be the best designed, the best implemented, the most optimized data warehouse, then they don't like the idea to automate and low code, and because that's kind of taking their work and what they are proud of away from them. So that group of more technical data people need to change their mindset to say, hey, my job is to make the business happy and deliver as much as I can, as fast as I can to the business, and not getting the last 5% of this fines making done around my data warehouse.
Very good. You distinguish between, when it comes to the options, you distinguish between a stack and a platform. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's almost the same. I think the difference is that when I see a stack, I see a stack per area. So that's what I see in the market in the broader scale, is that you have a stack of products and tools that you use to build and operate your data lake. Then you have a different stack with for your data warehouse, and your third stack for your semantic models, data products. All maybe specialized, yes, in what they are doing, and some of the tools might also be reused, but it's still siloed, right? When we talk about platform, that's because we have this full model in metadata, designed from source to semantic model, right? So that's why I call it a platform, because yes, we are a stack, we are part of a stack of a cloud services, but then it's just in a bigger, more wider perspective.
So how is TimeXtender approaching this? How are you helping clients to create and build a data estate?
But basically, we take two approaches. We take the approach that it needs to be acknowledged that it happens on the customer tenant or on-prem. It's not everybody who wants to go cloud. So we need to have that as a leading star to how we develop. So yes, we are partly a SaaS solution, but we're still with a desktop client, we're still with a services that goes on your own tenant, to make sure that you can have a setup where data is not leaving your promise. And I think that is still very important. I think there's a lot of customers who don't, and also industries that don't like your data to leave and go somewhere, and then hopefully they come back, and hopefully they don't get stored somewhere in the process. And then we take a graphical approach, that we believe that building data estates should be done based on metadata. Should be based on that, okay, we spin up an Azure data lake, and as an instance, and then we decide, okay, what data sources do we have? We need to take care of all the security and compliance, of course. But and then we select all the data, all the relevant data from that, and then, okay, schema changes, everything that happens from there, we just automate, right? So once you build your data lake, you're basically done. And new fields, new tables, changes, that will just happen by itself. And that, because we have then now stored all the metadata from the source and enhanced it to the extent we need or want to on the data lake, we built the data warehouse based on the metadata, not based on the data sources or the data types. So we completely remove all that. Just, okay, I want these data, customer name, all this needs to go here. And the same goes when you go to the semantic model. It's all modeling around on metadata. And then at some point, hey, I'm happy, I want to deploy this, I want to write the underlying code for Acer Data Factory or whatever we need. Then hit deploy, and our deployment engines will then do what the data engineer normally would do, writing all the code.
Very good. Looking ahead then, what data technology trends do you see in the short to medium term that companies will adopt?
I'm, of course, a very firm believer that automation and low code solutions in any form is going to continue to see a rapid adoption. I think we will continue to see a move to the cloud. There's still lots of companies that haven't done it. And then I think we will see that, and I think that's more due to the macroeconomics and the changes that we potentially are facing. We will see that the mindset that it's speed of delivering information and output to the business will supersede the possibility to do this fine-making data warehouse, so that the mental state will change, that we need to deliver faster, and we need to accept that faster also gives trade-offs.
Very good. And what would be your main recommendations for any CIO for 2023?
That could be a very long list. No, I think in general, start thinking about, if you haven't started, start thinking about how you can empower your organization with data, how to become a shopkeeper of data instead of a gatekeeper. So Donald Farmer phrased this, 10 years ago, that from a gatekeeper to become a shopkeeper. And I completely agree with him. The only problem is the majority of IT organizations, they haven't done it yet. So I think that's change the mindset. How can we empower the business? And if that means that we are an organization, we can do it just with giving them some Power BI or looking at what you already have on the stack, and then start thinking about the longer term, thinking about how do you get automation in, right? How do you become cloud agnostic and front-end agnostic? Because the only thing we know is that the type of databases and data lakes technologies that we are using today, 2 years, 3 years down the road, it might be some completely different technologies. But the business asks for the same. So we have to, how do we become more flexible on the IT side of just following with all the new innovations that comes along.
Yeah, I think it's a very good recommendation. Finally, what are your hopes for the future?
Well, except for peace and all that, I no, I think that I hope that every organization on the planet eventually will be empowered with data, mind, and heart, and find ways to use data not only to improve uh, the bottom line, the profit, but also how can we, all companies contribute with our data, our knowledge, our resources to also make the world a better place.
Very good. That's a great way to end our conversation. So thank you very much, Heine, for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
Love
you.